Originally, transactions were actually recorded in journals or books. Hence, the person recording them was called a bookkeeper. Today, we still refer to accounting records as the books of account, but they're almost never found in books.
The Jama-Nama system, often referred to as double entry accounting, had its origins in Persia, modern day Iran, and dates back many centuries. While the specific date of its emergence is challenging to pinpoint, it is known to have been practiced in various forms in the Persian-speaking world long before it was adopted in other regions, including India. The origins are often attributed to Persian scholars and merchants during that early period. One of the earliest known treatises on accounting and bookkeeping is the Book of Wisdom and Experience by the Persian mathematician and scholar Al-Khwarizmi, who lived around the 9th century. This book contains some of the principles of double entry accounting still in use today. While Al-Khwarizmi was among the first scholars to document the double entry accounting system, he is also one of the most influential mathematicians in history and is probably best known as the father of algebra. In addition to his mathematical works, Al-Khwarizmi also wrote about astronomy and geography. He produced a set of astronomical tables and wrote about the astrolabe, a precursor of the sextant, as well as the sundial. He also revised Ptolemy's geography, listing longitudes and latitudes of various cities and localities in the ancient world. He could be described as the prototypical Renaissance man, except that he lived about 6 centuries before in Persia. Amatino Menucci kept the accounts for Giovanni Farfoli and Company, a merchant partnership based in Nîmes. Menucci was the partner for the Salon branch, about 52 kilometers from Marseille. The writing, entirely in his hand, is neat, legible, and mostly well preserved. Financial records from 1299 to 1300 survive that he kept for the firm's branch in Salon. Although these records are incomplete, they show enough detail to be identified as double entry bookkeeping. The details include the use of debits and credits and the duality of entries. No more is known of Amatino Menucci other than the ledgers he kept. He clearly did not invent the double entry system. That was described almost 500 years before by Al-Khwarizmi in Persia. However, his ledgers are among the earliest known examples in medieval Europe.
Luca Pacioli was a wandering Franciscan monk and mathematician. He was a contemporary of Columbus and a friend and collaborator of Leonardo da Vinci's. His seminal work, Summa de Arithmetica, was published in 1494. It contained a section, Details of Accounting and Recording, that described the system used in Venice. This was 4 decades after Gutenberg's invention of movable type. Printing centers all over Europe allowed Pacioli's Summa to be translated, printed, and the ideas soon spread across the continent. In a way, the printing press was the equivalent in his time of the internet today, kind of at the bleeding edge of technology. That same accounting methodology, with its elegant simplicity, helped power much of the Industrial Revolution. The underlying technology didn't change much until the early part of the 20th century, when the mechanical adding machines were first introduced. With these new machines, it was easier to total columns of figures in books or journals, but it was still a lot of work. By the late 1960s, we were now using electronic calculators, which were quite a bit faster, but we were still doing it in journals, and it was still a lot of work.
In 1981, the IBM PC was introduced. Within a few years, some of the precursors of today's accounting software packages made it onto the market. But many experienced small business bookkeepers had a hard time transitioning from the traditional cash basis multi-columnar journals they were used to full accrual accounting software. In the 1980s, more than 90% of banking payments were made by check. By 2015, that had fallen to 8% and then 4% in 2021. So it's clearly declining. Back then, many small business bookkeepers made a living of sorts, transcribing paper checks and deposit slips into multi-columnar journals. They took their clients' bank statements and canceled checks every month. They got them from the mail, transcribed the transactions into these columnar journals. On Canada's west coast, we used to refer to them as either synoptic journals or cash receipts and disbursements journals. In spite of how archaic it might sound today, it was actually quite efficient. But clearly, bookkeepers in those days didn't quite understand how to take their understanding of bookkeeping and transition it to computer-based accounting systems. In the 21st century, the internet gave us online banking. Now the banks started doing most of the recording. All the bookkeeper had to do was keep receipts, allocate, and compile transactions. These days, we don't record transactions in books anymore. We harvest them and then process them with software. While some parts of the job are easier, there really isn't any such thing as a bookkeeper anymore. Today's accounting technician harvests and compiles transactions. They don't record them. There's more complexity, but also a greater opportunity for efficiency. A skilled technician has many tools in his or her toolbox and needs to use the most appropriate ones to meet the specific requirements of a particular client. Often, smaller clients don't even know what information they need, and the technician must work with their public accountant to develop a customized system on the fly. While small business software has become quite sophisticated, a skilled accounting technician must internalize the fundamental accounting algorithm him or herself. Today's accounting software packages aren't expert systems, they're systems for experts.